gentlemen. You know, I've always been a fan of anime. I mean, who hasn't been a fan of anime? And I'm also a fan of animation, Western animation. Who hasn't been? Heck, I can even say that I'm a bit of a fan of European animation, if you know what I mean. Basically of all animation. But here's the one thing that always got me that, you know, I talked about the differences between anime and animation. Basically the differences between Western and Japanese. And here's what always got me, folks. There's always some unique things unique things that you can do with characters and situations in animation, in an anime that you can't do in real life. Unless you have, nowadays, well, you could do not in real life, but in live action. Well, you could, but you have to have very good special effects to do it. With animation and anime, you could do the impossible sometimes, if not most of the time. But the one thing I've always noticed about anime, Japanese anime, is they tend to go in directions and do things that you do see in regular Western animation, but you don't see as much as you should, or as much as you see in Japanese animation. Let me kind of explain. You got so many trending things that they do. One of the trending things that they do is transformations, if you know what I mean. Shape-shifting, if you know what I mean, with certain shows. And this dates back all the way up into the beginning of anime Magna. Oh, Magna. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Magna. Oh, whatever. And I'm sorry for the pause I was thinking. But to me, you know, like I said, they've been tending to do these kind of things since almost the beginning of both the popular genres, which are manga and anime. One of the best early examples, I guess you could say, are several shows that came out throughout the 70s, late 60s, early 70s, or basically throughout the 70s period. Shows like Princess Knight and Marvelous Mimlo, or Lily as she's known in Italy. And basically these kind of all took advantage of the shape-shifting transformation kind of deal. In Princess Knight, you had a character by the name of Hecate. And unknowns to her father, you can read up on who her father is. I don't think it'd be much of a surprise if her name's Hecate. But anyway, she has the power, well, unknowns to her father, she's basically on the side of good. And she has the power to disguise herself, and even split herself in two. In other words, make a doppelganger of herself. So what does she do to help out her team, to help out the Princess Knight main character and her friends? What does she do? Well, I tell you what she does. She shapeshifts herself into different characters. Well, not different characters, but into different animals. I am not joking. I'm not joking, folks. Basically, basically what she does is she just changes the color of her outfit, which is red, to white. and then just makes an extension of certain parts of her body that needs to be extended and changed. One of her most common transformations is that into a little white cat. And basically what she has to do is whiten her outfit, change her outfit to white, change her hair to white, pull out a face like this to make cat ears, change her nose into a cat nose, and get a tail out of, and pull a tail out of her rear, if you know what I mean. But actually the tail part comes after the white part anyway, after she turns her outfit white. And then what she has to do is stretch out and everything, and then cover her face completely white, and then shrink down into a cat. Now sometimes when she does this, like I said, she has to make a doppelganger of herself so her father doesn't get too suspicious. But that's not the only animal she turns into. She also turns into a swan. I think she's turned into a variety of other animals. I can think a spider at one time because she was kind of having to help her father, so that was like in the early portions of stuff. A dragon or something like that. So, but her main transformations were that of good animals that I guess represented good, and that was cats and swans, and whatever else you want to call it. And if anybody's got video or footage or pictures of her doing all these other transformations that I talked about, let me know about it. But anyway, besides that, there was the other one that I mentioned called Marvelous Mimlo. Now, I did a video on this, and Marvelous Mimlo, or Lily as she's known in Italy, basically has a similar transformation. But here's what's unique about this transformation. Let me check my time here real quickly, because I have a 15-minute time span. Okay. But here's what's unique about the Lily thing. Lily, or Mimlo, is actually a 9-year-old character. Her character is 9 years old. And basically the premise about this, in case some people don't know, is her mother dies in an accident, in a car accident. I know it's kind of cliche, but back then it wasn't. And what happens is her mother is allowed by he above, in this, remember this is an anime, this isn't fiction, but she's allowed by he above to come back to Earth as a spirit and give her daughter Mimlo, Lily, a jar of special candies, special colored candies. And the way this works is quite unusual. It's very unusual. Basically what happens is she has several different main transformations. The first transformation is to take, I think it's a red pill, pop it in her mouth, or red candy, pop it in her mouth, and she becomes an adult. I'm not joking. The blue candy allows her to revert back to her 9-year-old self. Now, here's the tricky part, and I even mentioned this in the video while I was talking about it. Here's the tricky part. When she wants to revert down to an embryo, a fetus, if you will, she has to take the blue candy again, which shrinks her even more. She has to take the red candy, and it shrinks her down to an embryo. I know, it's weird. She's basically got to take both at the same time, or one after the other. Now, you might ask yourself, well, why does she do this? Why would she, go in this? Why would they have the character do this? It's because her other transformation, which is, like I say, one of her three, is by doing what I just mentioned, by taking both the blue and the red pill almost back to back simultaneously, or back to back, and shrinking down to an embryo. She's basically able to allow herself to be reborn out of that embryo into an animal of her choosing. That's right. So let's say she has, okay, so let's say, you know, if they decide someday to revamp the series and bring it back all new for a new generation and all that, right? Let's say they do that. Basically what would happen is, let's say she wants to, because she has like, of course with any show like this, or any anime or manga like this, she has a sibling. She has like a younger brother. So let's say she wants to keep an eye on her younger brother at school because she's been hearing rumors. Here's what she would do. So that way nobody would see her or her brother wouldn't see her. She would disguise herself as a certain animal. She would have to do what I just mentioned, get shrunk down to an embryo, and then think of the animal as she's getting shrunk down of what she wants to be and be reborn as. And they actually show in the original, in this anime, her being reborn out of the embryo and into the animal of her choosing. She's done rabbits, she's done mice, she's done dogs, you know. But here's another unique thing about her transformation. I said there was 3. Now, of course, her standard 9-year-old doesn't count. Let's just make that perfectly clear. That doesn't count. But here's what's unique. But here's the 3rd transformation. She's able to use the red peel to not only age herself to that of 10 years, 11 years older, which is 19 to 20 years old, but she's also able to take it as an adult, which would age her to an older lady. And there's an example of that where she befriends this, or tries to befriend this older man, and what she has to do is she takes the pill and she ages herself into an old lady. So, kind of a unique way to use the transformation, shape-shifting kind of stuff, right? And this is why you mostly see this at times in anime, in Japanese anime, more than you do in the Western animation. But here's another thing as well. Japanese anime is not just known for the transformations and the shape-shiftings, as I've mentioned various times, and the differences between their animation and ours, and anybody else's. But one thing I've noticed that they do more often than anything, ladies and gentlemen, is called the fusion, or the merger, if you will. Let me check my time. Excuse me, there too. But basically the fusion and the merging. Now we've seen this in our animation as well. But what's crazy about this is you see it more in their animation in the manga, or manga, if you will, more than you see it here. Again, I am not lying. I am not joking here, folks. You see it more there than you do here. And I'm not just talking about the merging of combining robots together and all that. No. I'm talking about the fact that you have 2 individual human-like characters or anthropomorphic-like characters fusing together or merging together to become one entity. And what's crazy about this is, well, not crazy, but what's unique about this is you never know what the fusion's going to result in. You know what I'm saying? You never know. I mean, for example, there have been many different kinds of fusions and mergings, if you will. And what those usually are either the individual who's being merged, basically well, I'll kind of explain a little bit. I'm getting close to 15 minutes here, so I'm going to take a time out right now and I'll be